Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Tamara Gady, and I am in a new studio today. We're going to have a really great conversation about real estate investing. But first, if you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. Let's get a conversation going about your title needs. Today's guest is Lance Wakefield. He is the owner of Win-Win Home Buyers, and they focus on acquisition of single-family homes and multifamily products. Lance has been in real estate for over 8 years, but what is really impressive is that he's been involved in over 1,000 real estate transactions. So welcome to the show, Lance.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to be here today. I love the studio. I love what we're doing here. So thank you for taking the time out to talk to me. I'm one of those people that like to really, let's just jump right in, right? Let's get to the meat of it. So the first question I wanted to ask you, I found this on your website. I want you to talk about what is the win-win method. And that'll give people a little bit of background about what you do.
Yeah. So my origination in real estate investing was around wholesaling. So your ability to acquisition a deal is your ability to make money. As good as you are at that is as good as much money as you can make. So after doing hundreds of acquisitions, I had to hire an acquisition manager.
Yep.
So someone who could help me to go on appointments because I couldn't go on them all myself. And now we've got, I think, 7 full-time acquisition people. So what I've taught them is kind of our method for buying. And it's a 5-step method that I use to work with sellers. And the first step in that method is, we call it fact finding. And it's where we talk about factual questions that don't piss people off yet. So like, how long have you owned your home?
Yeah.
Or how many square feet your home? How many bedrooms, bathroom, garage? Those really basic factual questions. There's other factual / more rapport questions. And rapport is the second step that I teach, is building rapport. We do that through empathy, understanding, and communication.
Okay.
Like those are kind of the ways that we build rapport with people. And rapport is trust, could be a good word to describe rapport, but where people feel comfortable with you. It's building that comfort, that trust, that and that friendship. So as we go through and do that, like some questions that are still factual, but that they get less factual, more their opinions and how they feel about things could be like, well, what do you plan to do with all the money after you sell this property? Like, what are you going to do with all that money? Going to go on a trip to Mexico, sit on the beach, or you buy another house. Like where are you going from here? So questions like that, we're getting into more of like what they feel, where they want to go, what they want to do. Once we've felt like we've built up enough of that, step 3 is the ask, where you ask them how much you want for your property. I don't encourage doing that until rapport has been built. So I like almost, it's not the same, but it's close to the same as like asking a girl to marry you, right? It's not something you just, how marry me? You gotta
Random
like
person at the coffee shop.
you've got to build up some before it. You've got to also have like a method of asking. You can't just be like, want to marry me? You've got to be like, get down on a knee. You got to have the ring. There's some stuff you got to go through first. And so it's important that you've gone through some of those steps. You have an idea of what you're looking for on the other side. And so go through all that. After that's the negotiation.
Well, before we get to that, so you kind of tapped into something I find really interesting, because I feel like realtors think that there's a disconnect between what realtors and wholesalers do. But I find that there are a lot of similar paths to get to the same place, right? You're trying to help them sell their house, right? And so people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
And so you do have, just like a traditional realtor has to build that rapport with their seller, you do also, right?
Absolutely. The skill set to be a good listing agent is pretty much the same skill set as being a good acquisitions agent.
Right.
There's not a ton of difference. The biggest difference is an agent represents you, right? Our acquisition agent represents us. And so like, we're not trying to say, hey, I think I can get this done for you. We're saying, hey, here's what we'll buy your house for. When an agent goes and lists a property, they can't predict what the market's going to do. They can guess. And sometimes they can have a very, very educated guess, but they can't predict the outcome. We are predicting the outcome. We're saying, this is what we're offering. Here's the contract. Here are the terms. Here's how this is going to go. What else might you need to make this work? And part of the rapport building and the fact finding is discovering what are their needs. An 88-year-old woman who's single and can't move any of her stuff out and doesn't have the money to pay movers has a different need than the tired landlord who's dealing with an eviction.
Sure.
Like that landlord wants me to deal with the eviction. The little old lady, she wants me to help move her crap
Move out. Yeah.
Right. So like those are two totally different needs. And our job is to be aware of those and then I would say sell to those or gravitate to those things. It's like the little old lady. It's like, well, we want to be at 110 on your house, but here's the deal. We'll pay for all your moving expenses. We'll know where she's moving and we know about what it costs to move. We've done it enough times. Say, okay, well, we can do 103, 500, but we're going to white glove service your move. So we'll pack everything, get it moved over, unpack it all, put it back up on the walls where you're going. So it's all done for you. And you're not going to have to pay a penny because we're agreeing on this price, not that price, and meeting your need.
Well, and I think that's just any service that people provide. You're trying to find out what those person's pain points are.
Exactly.
And solve those problems for them, right?
That's exactly what we're doing. We just have a little bit more control over the situation than a realtor does. A realtor is at the mercy of the market.
Sure.
We're at the mercy of whatever we decide to do.
Yeah.
And so we have more control. Like a realtor is probably less likely to be willing to pay those moving expenses for someone. I'll cut that check every time if you sign that contract.
Well, but for you, you're running your numbers, right?
Exactly.
And if it works out and it's part of the, you can cut that out of the profitability and still come out ahead.
Yep.
You're going to do that deal,
Exactly.
right? And so
Exactly.
it's a very different way of selling a house, even though there's a lot of parallels to both traditional real estate and what you're doing.
Yep.
It is just it's a different approach,
Totally.
as far as that's concerned. Okay, so you said the last thing was negotiations. So let's talk about
last
that.
two steps are negotiating and closing. So negotiating is, once I've asked, they've laid out where they're at in theory. I'm not moving on to negotiating if I don't have a number from them. I'm not negotiating against myself.
Well, sure.
Until I've got something
what
from
do you
them.
want to give me for the house, right?
Yeah.
So you force them for a number.
Force is a harsh word, but we will cajole a number.
Cajole. Okay, yeah. There's a big difference between force and cajole. Yeah.
We'll pull it out of them. So, but we don't. Yeah, we're going to ask many different ways for that number, and then also throw out some numbers that could already exist around their home, and see where if we can't get an exact number from them, a range, a ballpark, under this number or over that number, that's what we're looking for. So we've got some sort of boundaries to start playing within.
Okay.
Right? So from there, then we'd negotiate. If we know from, within a few minutes of talking to them, we can figure out where we need to be on the home. It's not very hard for us to figure out what the property's worth, and then we just back in from there.
So do you know what your number is before you get there, or do you take it? I mean, it doesn't matter what the inside looks like, or
to a point. So like remodeling a kitchen is remodeling a kitchen.
Sure.
It doesn't change a ton if the kitchen's super crappy or just sort of crappy. I'm still ripping it all out.
Yeah.
So I don't really need to know everything about that. What we're doing is we come up with an ARV, which is an after repair value, what it's worth all fixed up.
Yep.
Then we back out what we want to make. And then after that, we back out repairs.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to understand is foundation, roof, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, siding, windows. Those are the more majors.
The expensive stuff.
Yeah, I want to know that stuff. I'm already assuming I've got to do kitchens, bathrooms, floors, and paint inside.
Okay.
Like that's most homes. Most homes, like especially once I know that those things haven't been touched in the last, say, 5 years, it's time.
Yeah.
If you haven't painted a house in 5 years, after 5 years, that paint's starting to look rough.
Sure.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you live there, it's going to look rough.
I kind of look at things the same way when I'm going to buy a rental house, right?
Yeah.
I don't mind about the AC, the roof, and I really don't want to deal with roofs or plumbing, especially cast iron plumbing.
Yeah. We do that all the time. We rip out
Well,
cast
you guys
iron
don't
all the
care about
time.
that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but I can't stomach that bill. You probably, people in your area have contractors, people on, do you have on-staff contractors?
Yes. So I have an on-staff journeyman plumber who's almost a master and an on-staff journeyman electrician.
Yeah.
So I'm not scared of aluminum wires. I'm not scared of cast iron, clay.
You're already paying the guy.
I'm already paying him. And so
it's just
we're ready
materials
for
at
it.
that point.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm not scared of any of that stuff. But the last step, so after we negotiate, it's getting his price to a price that makes sense for us.
Sure.
Then we're confirming the condition of the property, right? So like we'll ask the seller all the questions if we're over the phone. And then if we haven't seen it, we have an inspector go out who's also on staff. He'll go out. He inspects for us, and he's also one of our project managers.
Okay.
So he may actually end up rehabbing that home. So he wants to
wants to see what it looks like. What kind of work does he have cut out for him?
Exactly. So he'll go out, he'll figure that out after the fact. And sometimes we do like, sellers like, oh yeah, it's in great shape. When we get out there and we're like, no, it's not. Like, and we know how to ask the questions. We ask them right, but sometimes, they'll exaggerate to get more money. So we've got to adjust the price after the contract. And
Are you saying people lie?
I'm saying
they may. And look, people fall in love with their home, right? And they have a lot of emotional attachment with that home, right?
There's also a lot of unawareness.
Yeah.
Like you may not know you have cast iron plumbing. You just brought up cast iron plumbing.
That's true.
How are you going to know?
That's true.
Especially if what comes out of the wall is a little PVC U-bend, like how do you really know what goes on behind the wall? You don't most of the time. They sincerely don't know. And so we're figuring it out. Like before we buy a home, we're running camera down the lines every time.
Well, and that was one of my questions is what do you look for when you're trying to identify a good property to either flip or buy and hold?
Oh man. I mean, the best circumstance for us property wise is the ugliest, crappiest house on the neighborhood or on the street or in the neighborhood. Okay. We want the garbage of the garbage.
Okay.
And it depends on the neighborhood. We also sometimes, I've bought the nicest house on the street too. And the house is phenomenal. The person's super distressed. They're going through a divorce.
Yeah.
So there's property distress and there's personal distress. I'll take either one.
Okay.
Personal distress is a lot less physical work after the fact.
True.
So, but yeah, all that will play into the negotiation. The last step is closing. Like I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of sellers where we agree on, they always like my terms because I pay all the closing costs, and they really pick their closing date. So they like all that. It's price.
It's always price, isn't it?
And so, that's where they'll fall out. So basically, I'm just we've agreed on that many times, but then actually getting them to sign the contract is the closing portion.
Do you have? I would assume you have them signed there.
Oh yeah. So if we go out to the property, we're always trying to get them to sign. Then sometimes one of the signers isn't available, or isn't there, or is dead, and so there's other stuff we got to work through. That's where title comes in.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of factors in title, like. That's another value that we add. So we will spend money to help clear their title for them where a typical realtor won't do that. Right. So
Absolutely
it's like,
not. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we'll pay, like I've spent probably 10 or 15,000 on attorney's fees for people before I've even bought their home because they can't convey title to me.
But this isn't, okay, now we're tapping into something that you're not aware of when you go assign the contract. You can ask some probing questions like,
yes,
divorce, death,
Am I fully aware of the situation?
Right.
No.
But is there $50,000 worth of liens on this property is probably not something that you're going to be able to discover.
No, we can't discover it. So part of our process, so from contracting, we look at it like we have a 72-hour period from contract to what we call disposition. And that's where we figure out what we're going to do with the property. During that 72 hours, we want to get a title commitment back from title, and we want to get our inspector out to the property.
Got it.
Once we have inspection back and the title commitment back, then we've got an idea of what we're really dealing with. And so question one, is this property closable? Can the seller convey? Those are the first things we're looking at. The next thing we're looking at, if those are yeses, then it's like, okay, can this property make us money based on what is that? And if those are all yeses, then it's like, let's move forward. If we get no's in there, then it's like, okay, well, how do we solve these problems? How do we turn these to yeses? Can they be turned to yeses? Is it worth turning them to yeses?
Okay.
And if the seller is super difficult or a total asshole, it's like, well, then probably like our desire to make that work just goes down because it's going to be more difficult for us.
It's funny. We were talking to my mastermind about how do you get rid of clients you don't want?
For us, it's really easy.
Yeah, you terminate
reduce the price.
Oh, reduce the price. Okay. Or terminate the contract.
Yeah, terminate the contract.
Yeah.
We'll just terminate. We terminate a lot of contracts.
Because you're dealing in volume, right?
Yeah.
You're not, and so you just turn and burn to the next property. It's not like you're going to run out of properties to buy. So.
Yeah, people ask me that question actually. And I'm like, the level, like, I don't want to sound rude, but it's like, that's a very naive question. Like, we'll never run out of properties. First of all, there's over 2 million rooftops in DFW, and they're building more every day.
Every day.
And so that's going to keep going for a while. But you think about 2 million rooftops, like 2 million people, like that's an insane amount of people. Most people have never seen 2 million people at once, or 1 million people at once, or even 500,000 people at once. The most people anyone ever sees at once is like 100,000 in a packed AT&T stadium doesn't have that many people. So you think about how many people that is. And then of those people, how many are going to lose their job this month? How many are getting divorced this month? How many have a major storm hit and their insurance doesn't cover it? And we're in DFW. That happens a lot. So it's like, and you start thinking through all these different things. How many can't pay their taxes? How many fall behind on mortgage payments? And you start thinking about that. And it's like, even if that's 0.1% of 2 million, well, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
And that's just here in DFW. And so, and then you think about all the CapEx on all these properties that people are ignoring. It's massive. And so even if the person doesn't get in any distress from all of those other factors, if they're not keeping up with their property, it's slowly becoming distressed.
You know, and it's really interesting to me because I find that people don't realize how many people either don't know how to keep up with their property or just don't have the ability to do so, right? And so there's a lot of distressed properties in DFW.
Yep. I mean, we also have kind of another huge factor here, which is foundation movement.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're not on top of that, man, that can destroy your home in a matter of just a few years. It can be a really good home to 5 years later have a lot of pretty significant problems. And so these homes can get destroyed very quickly just by the nature of where they are. Mm-hmm. And so you take all those factors together, there's so many people who need what we offer, which is why there's a lot of firms here that do what we do. There's a need for this, and that's why people are selling to companies like us.
Okay, so while we're on the track, I'm going to back up at some point and ask my the question about what you look for in a property. But since we're on this vein, where are the best locations in the Metroplex right now for this type of acquisition?
Depends what you're going for. There's, if you're looking for rentals, it's a little bit different than if you're looking for flips and if you're looking for new build type stuff. So,
okay, let's talk about flips and then rentals.
Yeah, so flips, I like hyper transitional areas. So for me, that could be like East Dallas, I like a lot right now, over kind of by White Rock Lake, but not super close. It's a little too expensive, super close. I really like, and it's not even areas. If you drive down a street and it's like nice home, ugly, nice, ugly, those streets that are gentrifying, those are where I want to be.
Okay.
I want to pick up some of the uglies on that street, especially when there's stuff that's already been flipped, because then I know I've got comps.
Yeah.
I've got that ARV comp in there. I've got what I need to make money, and it's pretty easy from there.
East Dallas, okay, what else?
East Dallas, West Dallas, South, not nice areas. So, where I've made some of the most money is more rural. If you just go outside and you go outside the major metro area and you take that tertiary market, so, Kaufman, Weatherford, those areas just outside of the major metro areas, made a lot of money flipping and holding there.
Okay.
But what I'm looking for is areas that have that transition going on, where everything's nice, it's not great.
Okay.
Where everything's junk isn't great either. You want to find that middle area where there's both. That's
Farmers Branch, Carrollton.
Yeah. Yep. And then, so the other thing I want to find is older, like Frisco.
How old is older?
Over 20 years old.
Okay.
So Frisco's tough because everything's pretty much 20 years and newer.
Sure.
There's not much built there prior to 2000. So I like that older stuff because it's less black and white. Like when you have a subdivision in Frisco, I mean, every home is, say, Fox and Jacobs, 1,300 to 1,600 square feet. There's 4 floor plans. This is what it is.
Yeah.
There's 8 floor plans just like this one that have sold in the last 6 months, and they all sold within $2 a square foot of each other. What's that house worth?
Mm-hmm.
Black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Can I really add much value there? Now, if they're distressed, yes.
Sure.
But if they're not suffering from any distress, probably not.
I like the Colony. I have a house in the Colony, and
Colony's
I've done very well. I bought it, was super distressed, mostly cosmetic repairs. I think I dumped $40K into it.
Yeah.
And that sucker jumped in value, $130,000.
Yeah, Colony's great. I mean, there's a ton of great areas. Another great, what I would recommend is go where you know. Like when I started doing this, I lived in McKinney, and my full focus was downtown McKinney.
Okay.
Because the rest of McKinney was all new.
Sure.
Right? So I moved there in 2015. All I was doing was farming downtown McKinney, and I'm talking both sides of downtown McKinney, the east of the 5 and west of the 5. Everyone likes west of the 5. Nobody likes east of the 5.
No, nobody likes east.
I went into east of the 5, and I was buying homes for $30,000 over there.
$30,000?
The cheapest home I bought over there was $5,000.
What year was this?
2017. I bought the $5,000 house. $5,000 for a house in McKinney. that people lived in too. It was not abandoned. It was rough.
Yeah. Well, I bet for $5,000.
But it was a home in McKinney. And so I sold that house, I think the next day for 45 or 50. I mean,
That's
I just
incredible.
turned it
You
just like
turned
that.
it.
And so some of the others I still own. The first one I bought for $42,000. Still own it. It's worth over 300 now.
That's incredible.
And so, yeah, like go where you know. And then if you can take where you know, and if you can find the transitional areas in the area you know, that's where I'd start. If you haven't started, that's where I would go.
Okay. Let's back. I don't think we answered the question. What do you look for in a house for it to be a good flip or buy and hold? Are there specific, do you have specific criteria?
So buy and hold, my favorite thing is if I can figure out how to get 2 income streams coming from it. So if I can
Same.
convert a garage, like that's where you really make money, is when you've got 2 units with 1 SFR. I know it's technically a duplex, but I'm not really looking for duplexes because those are a little bit different here, especially in DFW. Like I don't like the idea that I can own half of a duplex.
Yeah.
I don't want someone else's
I don't like that either. I won't buy
impacting.
half.
I won't buy. I'll buy a whole thing, but then usually those
Yes.
are more expensive because they can be sold individually.
Sure.
And so that pushes the price up. So I really like when I get a detached 2-car garage that someone's already run plumbing and electrical to, and I can finish building that out and turn that into a 500 square foot 1-bedroom, and then I've got a 2-1 or a 3-1 or a 3-2 as a main home.
Yeah.
If I can get those for the right price where I'm not factoring in that garage income, and then I can add that garage income on, or that mother-in-law or ADU, whatever you want to call it, I can add that income on. Those are the ones I make the most money on from a cash flow perspective.
Have you looked at the split pads? Do you know about split pad? There's a company that will come in and reno the house, and they'll subdivide up the house.
Huh.
And so they take out a lot of the common areas. They create a standalone, it's a multifamily product inside of a single family home. So,
awesome.
I mean, they basically reno the inside. They have, each bedroom has a bathroom and a small kitchenette, and then they rent it out to multiple people. I would never live in one of those,
Yeah.
but I really like the idea of it.
Yeah, that's perfect. So like particularly in those tertiary markets, it's perfect because there's a lot of tradesmen out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you look at Sherman and Denison right now, well, construction's just booming on, like there's nowhere near enough housing. So trades are coming in from every direction
Everywhere.
to go in there and work. And so if you've got homes like that in those areas, that's exactly what tradesmen want. They want that studio.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dude who has a family in a home somewhere else, or
Yeah.
they might not. But either way, it's a single dude. They don't care.
You
They
might
want
look
it
at that
cheap.
company. You could
Yeah.
probably. I'm a big plagiarizer. I'm
Yeah.
a fan of plagiarizing.
Mhm. So are they like? I mean, they're not separate. They're not making it a multifamily.
No.
They're just off, and it's all on 1 meter still.
Yes.
So they just say, "Hey, it's utilities included.
Yes.
Move in." And are they furnished or are they unfurnished?
I don't know the answer to that.
Interesting.
I don't think they're furnished, but I could be wrong
Then
about
the dudes
that.
are just bringing blow up mattresses.
It's up to you to
Probably, yeah.
whatever you want to sleep
Yeah, that's
on.
funny.
I don't know that most people are. I think I don't know that they're doing them as short term.
Mm-hmm.
Turn and burn that way. Maybe they are, but I think it's more long term, 6 months to a year lease.
Yeah.
So you would bring in your own stuff at that point.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. That's interesting.
It's an interesting concept.
What's it
and
called?
Split pad.
Split pad. I'll have to check it out.
Yep, I had
That's
one
interesting.
of my other podcasts. I had a realtor who does a lot of investing himself.
Mm-hmm.
He's starting to do some of these here in DFW. I wanted to know if there was a market for them here.
Yeah. Well, if there's tradesmen, then I think there's a market for it because that's exactly what guys like. We have people. I have setups like that where I don't have 2-car garages. I have like a 1-car garage, but it already had plumbing and electrical in it.
Sure.
So I just was like, okay, well, it's going to be 200 square feet, 250 square feet. But if I give a guy what he needs and those rent for $750 a month, the main house, which is a 3-1, rents for $1,200.
Okay.
I would way rather have,
Yeah.
if I had 3 of those in there
Oh yeah.
and each one's at $750, I could be bringing in $3,000 a month instead of $1,900 a month.
Sure.
Makes a
All
lot of
day
sense.
long.
Yep.
All day long. Okay, so let me ask you this: where do you, when you want to acquire a house, do you have a template for your design? This is more flip talk. Okay, do you have a template for your design, and where do you choose to do upgrades to attract more buyers?
So we have a template outline, like products that we tend to use in homes. We also have an in-house designer who
You have an in-house designer?
Yes, who will put like a custom kind of spin on every property to help.
Okay.
So one of the things that a lot of I'm nobody get offended here, but
Here we go.
most of the people who are in real estate investing are dudes. You probably are aware of this.
And I am so tired of black, white, and gray.
Yes. But here's what the dudes who are flipping and real estate investors miss is men don't buy homes. Women do.
Correct.
The wife buys the home. She's going to pick the home. So if you got a bunch of dudes making dude decision and dude designs trying to sell to women, well, that doesn't work very well. So that's why we have designer.
Hence the black, white, and gray everywhere.
Yes. So I
am not kidding.
Oh, you're not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
It's what will happen every time if you just leave guys to do it. So what the woman will bring to the table is making the home appeal to a woman. And that's what we want. And when we can do that, we found that we can set records in neighborhoods.
So does she spend time designing around the kitchen and maybe the master bath?
Yep.
That's where I would want to spend money.
So curb appeal.
Yeah.
Is one thing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Appeal.
Yeah.
We want the home to be cute on the outside.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be fancy, but it needs to be cute.
Yep.
If they drive up and they like it, it's cute, that's the first step. Then they get inside, they're good with kitchen, master bath, and there's a flow. That's the next thing. And then there's some other touches we try to put on the homes, and we're working on this, but making sure the house smells good when they go in. Like nothing is going to turn a woman off faster, and I'm talking for buying a home perspective, than a bad smell.
Realtor trick to have fresh baked cookies in the oven type thing.
Simple stuff like that. That helps go a long ways for people, because if the home smells good, it's just easier to see yourself in it.
Yeah.
When it stinks, you're like, I don't want to live somewhere stinky. And even if it's not somewhere stinky, it just needs to smell good. So those are some of the simple things that we do to help it be attractive and to help get top dollar for the homes.
Love it.
So, and the designer is not very expensive. And she can do CAD and everything we need to help with all of it.
Well, and she doesn't run out of creativity.
Nope.
Because this is what she does, right? Yep. I feel like sometimes when you're doing this volume of homes, if you're not careful, you get into that rut, black, white, and gray.
Yep. So we're big believers in the white walls, but then we'll put, we try not to do gray floors. We try to do like an oak colored floor or something that gives it more of a warm feeling. We don't want it to feel too cold, because grays and whites and blacks come off as cold. So we want warmth in the home. We want gold accents in there. We want some of those just warmer color feelings in the home. So we're trying to figure out what we can do, and then we'll experiment with different things, different lighting fixtures, different plumbing fixtures. It doesn't need to be crazy different things, maybe an accent wall. Mm-hmm. It's little things, but it just looked like someone took the time and cared.
Yeah.
And that's what gives a lot of women the warm fuzzies. Like, oh, someone really cared about this house. And we do care. We just sometimes, as guys, not guys who aren't design prone, it can be very difficult for us to figure out how to help someone feel that way. But women especially who are designers, are really good at helping other women feel that way. So I'm a big believer that if you've got a construction department, you want to bring some feminine energy into that construction department.
There was a great article that came out from Texas Realtors last month about the psychology of buying and selling homes. And
oh man,
you need to check it out. Yeah. Because it's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. You do have to figure out what's going to attract people to your property. So you want to get the most money out of it,
totally.
Right? You're trying to keep going down the road and keep doing what you're doing. So, and profitability is...
Yeah, it's way more than just the most money, though. I mean, if you think about it, if every woman who goes into a home wants it, how long is it going to take to sell? Not very long, right?
Nope.
And so there's that velocity of money too.
Yep.
And there's velocity of like the office. When we're putting homes out and they're going in contract quickly, think about the confidence that creates.
Agreed.
I mean, there's so much. It's like, you watch sports. It's like when a team has good stuff happening, more good stuff seems to happen. And when a team has bad stuff happening, more bad stuff seems to happen. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be the team that has the good stuff happening. And so how we do that is we create homes and spaces that people actually want to live in, actually want to enjoy. Yes, it's a flip product, but when you look at it, you might not think immediately it's a flip product, because I look at comps all day and I see a lot of homes. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a crappy flip. That's a crappy flip.
You see a lot of crappy flips.
Lots of crappy flips. It's like the solution to a home being ugly isn't just throwing newer stuff in it and assuming it's now going to be pretty. It's less ugly now. That's it. We want to make them pretty. We want to make them enticing. And even if that home is for sale for $200,000, I'm not saying it has to be expensive. One additional paint color on a wall costs you a couple $100 extra bucks.
Right.
This light fixture versus that light fixture might be the exact same price, and you're installing one either way. So it doesn't have to be, it's not a money factor. It's just it's a uniqueness, a style factor, really. And so we try to figure out how to do that within a budget.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think we can do a whole nother podcast on psychology of selling, buyers and sellers and teams and companies and everything else. But I think this is a great place to stop for today. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
I really appreciate our conversation, and I look forward to the next time. That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining. Again, if you like my content, you're really going to love my escrow team. You guys make it a great day. Thank you so much.